Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. My name is Sendra Dorcé. I have with me today Peter Rosenberger. This is part two of a two-part interview. We hope that you enjoyed the previous segment, and stay tuned for more of Peter's views on topics such as politics, business, leadership. So how do you apply the concept of stewardship more, and can you be more specific in how it would apply to Washington? If someone called you and said, come fix this broken government that we have, how would you apply stewardship to that?
Well, if I could wave a wand, the first concept would be to be term limits for the House and the Senate. Because most of the problems we're having right now is because we've had these people there in the House and the Senate establishing their little power kingdoms, and they're out of touch. The second thing is I would require a balanced budget amendment, and I would require a line item veto for the president to be able to stop having to push more and more. You basically have to compromise. They will never do this on their own. They will never fix this government on their own because they're too entrenched in getting stuff out of it. So if they are by law made to have a balanced budget, then you'd be amazed what gets, and you have to ask yourself, why aren't they? Why are they not? Why are they not? Because if they did, they would have to work harder and smarter, and we wouldn't be wasting time on all these ancillary little witch hunts that we've done, because they would by statute, they'd have to fix a problem. And if you notice that you don't have a lot of problem solvers in Washington.
No, you don't.
People who commiserate about the problem, a lot of it is the problem that they caused, and they run for re-election on addressing that problem. Every president since, I don't know, Reagan, maybe even before that, has said that Jerusalem needs to be the capital of Israel, but none of them solved the problem until Trump did. Now, why is that? Well, when you have a guy who is used to building something, he has a quantifiable empty piece of land, and he has a vision for putting something on that piece of land that has steel and concrete and wood and glass and all kinds of electricity and plumbing and all those things. It's called building, and you have to solve problems when you build. But if you legislate all the time and you're just dealing with compromises and consensus, you're never going to solve anything. So when you have problems and you have people who have shown an unwillingness to solve the problem, then you're going to have to force them into a situation where they either get out or get with the program. So why do we not have a balanced budget amendment in this country?
Because it doesn't serve their purpose.
Well, but that's not good stewardship, is it? And
No.
So if we had what would a balanced budget amendment be? It would force these congressmen and congresswomen to work instead of posture, to work instead of pander, to work instead of building their own little agendas, ideology agendas. They would actually have to physically work and fiscally work, and they don't want to do that. They would much rather look important and sound important than actually do something important.
This is a disgrace.
First part of stewardship, if you ask me, if I went to Washington, that would be almost to the exclusion of everything else, is a balanced budget amendment. And then right after that's done, we start working on term limits.
So of course, I fully agree. I mean, term limits, definitely. Why does it apply to presidency? Why does it apply to governorship and not to, to Congress and Senate? So I wanted to ask you about, the COVID. You talk about the budget and how they've been trying to negotiate a budget around the COVID entitlements, and Congress hasn't been able to pass it. Now President Trump has halted payroll tax to alleviate some of some hardship on on the citizens. But I mean, explain to the audience how they can, in all honesty, say that they're doing their jobs if they're not taking care of the American people.
Well, they're not interested in the American people. They're not. If they were interested in the American people, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. They're interested in the Chinese people,
Yes.
but they're not interested in American people. They're interested in the Iranian people,
Mm-hmm.
150 billion and 1.5 billion in cash to the Iranian people who chant death to America. But they're not interested in the American people. If they were interested in the American people, our major urban cities would not be on fire. Our major urban cities would not be, the school systems and these places would not be decimated. We wouldn't have these issues, but they're not interested in the American people. They're interested in themselves.
And
And
also the borders, they're aiming for the border to be open so that anyone could come in, get free health care.
well, why is that? Because they always have to have a permanent underclass of people, of victims who need them to advocate and promise things to them. The Black community in this country is starting to wake up and realize the Democrat Party has not been their friend. And
No.
you're a lot of this, but as soon as you get any type of African American who steps up and offers a different path, they are reviled and treated poorly. And it's a real shame because there are people that have things important to say. And even if you don't disagree, I mean, if you disagree with them, you can still respect the fact they got their opinion. But they are, if these legislators were interested, well, it's like Nancy Pelosi. She's no more interested in the American people than
No, no interest.
she goes over there to a salon and she can get her hair done, but nobody else can.
And she
Um,
lots of ice cream.
yeah,
Very
and so
fancy ice cream.
there's only one person in the United States government who's working for free.
And that's Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's not taking a dime.
They
You know,
said it. I think Bloomberg said he was going to do it, but you're late to this game because you
well,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
a
So,
lot of people say it. He did it, and
but
so
the
I
other thing,
I would think, why is there not a cap on how much we pay U.S. House members and senators based on their net worth? Nancy Pelosi's worth $175 million. Why
is
does
she
she
really?
something to that effect? Yeah, but why does she need a salary from the United States government that
Incredible.
that's consistent no matter what? And so I think there's a point where, and they call themselves public servants. I don't see a lot of servanthood.
I do not.
You
I do
know,
not. And I want to call out.
you're
So
getting paid to do something. That's not,
absolutely
caregivers don't get paid. I don't
right.
get paid to be a caregiver to my wife.
Neither do
That,
I. You know, it's called our currency is love. So that's pretty much the commitment that we give. And so, there are more topics. So we have right now an election coming up in less than 40 days. I believe. I haven't done the count. I try not to because it will distract me. But so we have on the topic of we have climate change. And so you have been directly affected by some form of it. Tell us, what's happening in your
we've had
backyard.
fires out here. I think being good stewards of our environment is a part of stewardship. But this whole climate change conversation has become a religion, not stewardship. And so what happens is we allow the forest to get out of hand, and then we burn 500,000 acres and put all this smoke into the air. How does that help the climate? I mean, is that a good thing?
No,
Whereas we've been hiring lumber companies to come in there and timber out that dead wood and get it out, that standing dead wood, so that we don't have these places that can just go up and smoke all the time. And we manage these forests properly and be good stewards of them. But because we've allowed the climate change fanatical side of this whole thing, as opposed to stewardship of the environment,
that is
um,
such
and,
a
and
beautiful
anybody
concept.
that with
I
any
love that.
sense would say, if you're going to be a good steward of the environment, you don't leave a bunch of dry wood and leaves and everything waiting to go up with a lightning strike or a cigarette or something like that. I mean, how does that make sense? And then 500,000 acres burn, people die. You put all this smoke into the air. How does that advance the cause of climate change or climate?
Exactly. So they're
And
not solving problems. They're
no, they're
not
not.
they're not providing solutions. We have so many issues right now leading up to this election. So another one, I want to bring you these topics and I want to hear what your thoughts are. So we have now on the table the defunding the police, which
Well,
is a
wait a
big.
minute. Let me go back. Let me go back to the climate thing. I live in Southwest Montana. We've had smoke filling this. I couldn't even see the valley. We've had smoke, and the fires weren't from here. The fires were from California and Oregon. but it came up here. People's respiratory, all that kind of stuff. People are you know, it makes people sick. And then you've had all the damage that's this far away. We're a long ways away from Oregon and Montana and California. We're closer than you are, but still, we've had all this smoke up here. How is that helping anything with the climate to do this? How is that helping promote clean air when we allow all this forest to burn and it could have been properly harvested and managed and been good stewards? We could have had cattle grazing on it and doing it responsibly. And so know how to take care of the land. They've made a living off of it for generations. We know how to do that. But it's a matter of stewardship as opposed to these stupid regulations where we think and we feel and we want to be good stewards of climate change and we're going to kill the planet. Well, yeah, we're on a good start if we're going to allow 500,000 acres to burn for stupid reasons. And so it's all about stewardship. Go back to the next point here. What was the next one? It was
defunding the police.
Defunding the police. Okay, go ahead. I mean, unfortunately, you're going to have to figure out some people. We have a statement out here in the West. It's crude, but some people have to pee on the electric fence for themselves to figure out.
So this ties into. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I mean, just go ahead and defund it. See how that works for you.
And let's talk about tying that into socialism in Black Lives Matter. So that's just a package deal there.
Well, because it's all about the breakdown of society as we know it, and that's the goal. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist group. If they were caring about the Black lives, they would go into Chicago, deal with that reality, and start being good stewards of the places and the lives that are entrusted to them now, and showing people compassion, not destruction. You know, Black Lives Matter can come on a trip with me over to Africa next time and we put legs on people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they want to do away.
Oh, go ahead.
They want, apparently part of their manifesto was to do away with the family. It's part of Karl Marx.
They scrubbed that off their website. They're not interested in anything other than their own power grab and interest. I mean, you know, I categorically reject it. I don't even want to have a discussion with them because it's hard to break bread with people when the restaurant's in flames.
Did you ever
screaming at you through a megaphone to tell you to raise your hand in solidarity or say her name or whatever? No, I'm not going to do this. And I'm not going to engage with infantile and destructive behavior. If that's something you want to do, good luck with that. But ultimately, what you're going to do is you're going to hurt the very people you say you care about.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's the sense of identity politics that, you know, we're going to, Joe Biden picking a woman who's Black or a woman of color, you know, Kamala Harris, I think I'm saying her name properly, because she's Black, and no one questions, you know, what her policies are. No one questions what, you know, her vision is for the country, other than she is a Black woman. And I mean, I'm a Black woman, but again,
yeah, why aren't you vice president? Why aren't you Joe Biden's vice president?
What?
Why aren't you Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate?
Because Joe Biden wouldn't be able to have a conversation with me.
Well, but I would be insulted if I was her. She didn't get there on her merit. She got there on her color and her gender. Two things absolutely no control over. That's kind of sad.
That is very sad. From being from Haiti and having seen the destruction of that country for incompetent politicians, I never thought I would see this happening in the United States. There's nowhere else to go, you know, unless unless I find $1 billion and I buy my own island and create my own nation. This is it for now. And the idea that they see this as the worst country on earth. And I say to them, you know, Haiti's waiting. It's not that far. It's an hour and a half. We'll put them all on a plane, stay there for 5 years and come back and tell us how you did. So that said, so we talk about socialism and how it's playing out in the political arena, and how apparently now that seems to be the theme of the Democratic Party. And so how our taxes are going to go up. You say you want to have a balanced budget. How does socialism fit into your vision?
You don't. Socialism only fits in the vision of people who are controlling. It's not about conservatives and liberals anymore. It's about elites and patriots. Patriots are people who do what they do out of devotion and love to the point of even facing death. Devotion can even help strengthen you in the face of death. I look back at Martin Luther King Jr. My dad marched in the civil rights movement. He was there in rural South Carolina as a minister. He took a lot of heat, but he did it because he saw the value in this. And I look back at what Martin Luther King inspired because he was devoted to love
Yes.
of his country could become and his own people. And you could just see that devotion in him.
Yes.
And him to face the very painful things that he faced. And I look at the desecration of his values that is being modeled right now by the Democrat Party. And the Ku Klux Klan was the militant wing of the Democrat Party back
Yes,
in
it was.
the 1900s. Black Lives Matter has become the militant wing of the Democrat Party today. And anytime there are people that want to demand power versus to serve and to reach your hand, it's hard to reach. You can't reach across the aisle if you're tearing up a speech.
So Black Lives Matter, from what I see, is not all just, but we have Antifa also mixed in with Black Lives Matter. Can you talk about how that blend is sort of this,
I look at all of these as individuals who have been completely indoctrinated by a failed system of education in this country, who have not been taught the value of this country and how, yes, we inherited birth defects. Okay, I get it. I get it. Now, what do? Burn the whole thing down? Or
right?
can we adapt, become flexible, come together? And can I appreciate, can I respect in my fellow American citizens, particularly those who were brought here against their will and generations ago, and their families have grown up in generational racism and poverty and bitterness and all those things? Can I respect their trauma? And I want to, and I certainly do. I did not do this to them. I did not do this to my wife, but I respect her trauma and I try to care for her to the best of my abilities. But she got hurt before I ever knew her. But I've come alongside her to love her and to care for her. And when I screw it up, which I do, learn to make amends. But it's never going to happen if we're constantly at odds with each other and beating each other and burning our own house down. Gracie and I have had very painful things in our lives. I have failed her miserably. She has failed miserably. We have made horrible mistakes. She came into this marriage with things that I did not cause. I didn't do this. But I love her and I cherish her and I want to equip her to be as healthy and live the kind of life, a full life, as much as she possibly can and wants to. And in the process, she does that for me. How is that any different from our country? There are people that came to this country with horrific backgrounds today, right now, not just in slavery times. And there are people whose ancestors were brought here years ago, long before any of us showed up and had anything to do with it. But how does it help if we just burn the whole thing down? Is there some way that we can sit down and have a conversation?
Absolutely. And so they are saying that this country is, the Republican Party is racist. Donald Trump is racist. We have people in Congress who are telling people that if they come into this country illegally, they have the right to every benefit that an American citizen has. So where are we going with this?
I don't mind if people come to my house, but please come to the front door, not through the window. I mean, it's not complicated. We'd love for people to come to this country. Please come to the front door, ring the doorbell, and wait for us to open the door before you bust the window down and come in and just make yourself at home. I believe that every one of these people who say that all these illegal immigrants are welcome to come in, lock their doors at night.
And they have gates.
So tear down your own gates and take off the doors, take off the doors and the windows of your own home.
Sure.
And then come back.
George Soros.
Let me know how that works out for you, and then come back to me and tell us to do it as a country.
So that's including George Soros, who is.
I don't. the list is long of people who make inane things. I'm just simply saying, if you have a front door and you have a back door, take them off and then let people know that your doors are open, and then come back to me in a month and tell me how that worked out.
So we talk about some of the, so what do we love about this country? Why don't you start telling
Oh,
me? What do you
I
tell me?
love,
What does America mean to you? Why do you
what I
are you
love
a
about this
patriot?
country is this was a country that saw such great injustices when a small group of people or person dictated everybody's well-being, their rights, their worth before God. It happens in a nation, it happens in a church. If you'll notice, the Reformation started in 1500 because there were people that said this is wrong. The average person wasn't even allowed to read. Do you understand the concept of what happened when Martin Luther translated the Bible into German for his own people so that everybody could read the good news of God's salvation through Christ?
Hmm.
That it was Christ alone that we were saved, not through some kind of indulgences we had to pay to priests to be able to get away with certain sins. And that sparked the Reformation, which then led to ultimately the ideals that this country was on, that we can govern ourselves. We have the right to be able to worship wherever we want, whenever we want. We have the right to be able to say whatever we want. We don't have to be threatened with prison just because we disagree with somebody who is an elected leader. And we want to hold our elected leaders accountable. One of the things that I was so dismayed about is that Obama referred to the Constitution as negative liberties against government. We want no liberties for government. We want liberties for individuals. I don't want a government that takes liberties. I want individuals that take liberties, and we get a government that answers to those people collectively. Says, no, we're going to be good stewards of this precious gift of freedom. And yes, we were born with this terrible birth defect. And we had a mechanism in there to deal with that. That somebody was smart enough to say, you know what, this is probably not going to end well. We can't fight all this battle right here today. We don't have the whatever, but we're going to put a mechanism in to deal with that. And we did. And that's when we put in the amendment to abolish slavery. And now Trump is looking at doing Juneteenth as a national holiday. These
Why?
things is because we are growing as a country to recognize, okay, we're going to validate that this was painful. And that's what's the beauty of America, is that we can look back at our past and say, this was painful. This hurt people. We want to make amends to this, and we want to promote individuals to a healthier place. That's the beauty of America, is that we are seeking to form a more perfect union. We're not going to get it every right. We're not going to be perfect, but we are seeking to do so, not a utopia, where everybody gets the same. That stupid John Lennon song, Imagine. There's no worse song. Imagine there's no heaven, there's no hell, never. Come on. I live in Realville. I live with a woman who has a broken body that is not going to be fixed this side of heaven. Her legs are not going to grow back, so I'm not going to imagine her legs growing back. I'm going to live with the fact that her legs are gone, and she is too. We use prosthetic equipment, and we do this, but we don't have to feel better about it, because it's not about me feeling better. It's about me being better. And we're never going to feel better about the heartache that has been in the history of our country. But we can
And
be better.
so
We can be better.
we
We
can
can.
be better, and we are better with every day. The fact that I can sit here and have this conversation with you, that shows that's symbolic for better, not worse. This is progress in my world.
I,
So
I
Haiti has been independent for 200 years, and it was the ruling class. Was the country is primarily black, and I say to people, changing the color of the White House doesn't make it better. What's the character of the person? What qualities are they bringing to the table? What vision do they have? So
Martin
this
Luther
whole
King said
discourse
that, where a
revolves
man can be
around.
judged by the content of his heart rather than the character of his skin.
Absolutely.
Color of his skin.
I'm very confident, honest. I did not vote for Trump. I was a libertarian. I voted for Gary Johnson twice, and in the 2012 and 16, Gary Johnson, libertarian. I'm for freedom. Because I was questioning the Republican Party, and but
I question the Republican Party every day, and I Republican Party is responsible, chiefly responsible for the mess we're in, because I expect very little from the Democrat Party. I know they're going to
Yes,
do what they're going to do,
it,
but the Republican Party said that they're going to be the adult in the room, and
no,
they're
they're
not.
not. They're just
And they're
watching.
feckless. And the person I hold responsible for virtually the entire mess of the Russian impeachment hoax and all these other things, the person I hold responsible for it most is Paul Ryan.
Thank you for saying the name. I wanted you to say it. Yes, Paul Ryan. He
I hold him
actually
responsible for all of it.
he
He was
lost the house. He
of the
lost the
House of
house.
Representatives, and he allowed so much because he was so in tune with the Washington establishment, and he was not in
These
tune.
handlers, I call them
You know?
handlers. I know
And if
you
he
have to be
was,
politically correct, but I
I
can't because I watched this happen. The thing
I
is
don't have to
about
be
when
politically correct. I just be accurate that this is the man I hold responsible, and he owes the American people a debt, and he owes certainly an apology to the American people because he allowed this nonsense. And if he ever watches this video, I hope he does, but I doubt he will. But he owes that to us. Sorry.
someone's calling you to say, stop talking about Paul Ryan.
Well, these are I don't know why I keep getting these calls. These are survey calls I get from politics, and I get all the survey calls.
Just when you said Paul Ryan, his handlers are calling you. So yes, Paul Ryan. I have a few other names. Now we have Mitt Romney, and now we have a big one because of SCOTUS. Let's talk about the next Supreme Court justice. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the president has a constitutional right and mandate to pick one, and he has, and now the Senate can advise and consent. And if they don't like it, they can go through it, but they don't need to. When is the last time that any leftist pick from the left was subject to the character assassination that those are from the right? I have been I've been very disappointed in Joe Biden since I first saw him with Clarence Thomas back in 1991, I guess, and the way that was handled. And Joe Biden was chairman of the Judiciary Committee then, and I think he was with Bork, and started it and all this kind of stuff. So I think the president can pick somebody. Any of his list is fine. They're all qualified people. She's already on the bench.
Who did you pick? I think I missed that.
Amy Barrett.
Do you know that she has two adopted Haitian children?
She does, and she also has a special.
Well, this is me excited for her. Yeah.
Well, she also
I'm
has a special
excited.
needs child.
Oh my goodness.
So she's a caregiver.
What stewardship.
She's a caregiver. So
So hopefully she sees this too, this video of me getting excited about her candidacy, and she
well,
will get it. She's a phenomenal record, 7 children. My goodness, any woman who can have raise 7 children to me deserves to be rule the universe.
well, if the Senate is unhappy with the fact that they don't have the ability to stop this vote, then they can go out to Nevada and they can sit down with Harry Reid and they can slap him around because he's the one that did this when he monkeyed around with the Senate rules in 2013. And they told him not to do it, said this is going to come back to bite you. And he went ahead and did it anyway to further his own agenda and Obama's agenda. And now they have to reap what they sow. So again, I pick the person and let's move on.
Absolutely.
Should not be generating this much angst in our country.
Absolutely.
If case that we have gotten out of balance and we're not being good stewards. All the laws in this country should be done through the legislature. And if they can't put forth an agenda through the legislature, they do not need to have judges who are activists doing this on the Supreme Court. So it's going to cause even more unhingement and from the left. But again, the right needs to step up and say, we're not going to tolerate these teenage behaviors.
Absolutely. And we are ready. We are ready because we know what's at stake. I don't even have children, but I value this country, because Donald Trump, with what he's given up and what he's committed to as president and what he's endured, has brought me back to the Republican Party. Doing the Kavanaugh hearings.
It's brought me back to supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And the fact that and the American people. I'm a patriot first. Republican, I used to be, but I have grown weary of their feckless behavior. And so I need people who are patriots, who love this country and can articulate why they love this country. I don't
Absolutely.
want mentality. I don't want traditionalism. I want patriotism who say, I love it, and I see it for what it is. I'm looking for people with devotion, not with rage. I'm looking for people with compassion, not with an agenda of doing things.
Blind or blind the particular party, and that's you bring to
Yeah,
that.
I have no allegiance to the Republican Party. I have an allegiance to this country and to the freedoms that it espouses and it is based.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Well
you
said.
know, and
And I correct
I am
myself and say,
devoted. I am devoted to my wife because of who she is as an individual, as a unique individual. I'm devoted to her. Period. End of discussion. Not because she's handicapped, not because she's from Florida, or not because she's white, or not because she's this or that, because of who she is as a unique individual. And my
absolutely.
devotion to her is what drives me as a caregiver. That's
Absolutely.
what out of my fellow citizens of America. Are we devoted to this country? Do we love this country? And if so, can we articulate why we love this country?
Absolutely. And you said it beautifully. And so what is your vision for this country in the next 10 years? In
I
10
don't
years, 50 years, 100 years, have you thought about it? What do you want to,
I don't know. I don't know, Sendra. I don't know, Sendra. I don't know how this is going to play out. My vision for this country, though, is my hope for this country, not my vision, but my hope for this country is that Donald Trump has done two things. One of them is he's instilled a sense of patriotism and love for this country that will inspire more people like him to run for office, and more people like him who will fight for the values of this country. And the other thing is, I think he has instilled a sense of confidence that it's okay to push back against the left and the media in this.
indeed,
the-
absolutely.
I believe he's shown that the media have glass jaws, and it's okay to take a swing at them, because what they've done through promulgating their lies and the 92% negativity of them, they ask Joe Biden softball questions when they ask him, but they
Right.
grill him every single day. And the biasness is so evident. And so what I'm hoping he's done is he's kind of helped steal backbone into myself and fellow Americans to say, and
Absolutely. Myself included.
it's time to be adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do some I make my rounds in the local political in groups, and I go back to just watching Donald Trump because his inspiration does not equate what I see on the local level. And that's why we are losing this country, because the local politicians are being politicians. And so I think I nominate you. I think you should run for office, Peter.
I have too many painful things in my background.
I'll move over to Montana and come help you run your campaign.
I have a different type of purpose and mission, and that is to my fellow caregivers.
Well,
And
I have to ask.
pardon me.
I said I had to ask because
Well,
definitely you are the
that's
type
very
of
gracious of
people
you.
that we do need.
But well, my purpose and my mission is to strengthen my fellow caregivers with the same values we've talked about here. I want my fellow caregivers to understand on a heart level these things, and we can, yes, we may be saddled with some very difficult things, but we can rise above those things and live a life of calmness, healthiness, and even joy and beauty and love. You don't have to have everything perfect in your life for you to be able to live a life of meaning and consequence. And we can try to see things from other people's perspective. We can extend our hands. Not you can't extend. You can't reach across the aisle with a clenched fist. You can't do that. You can't push a wheelchair with a clenched fist. And so we have to open our hands a little bit and recognize that there are people that we encounter every day who live lives of quiet desperation, as I think Thoreau.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be cognizant of that, and that there's no substitution for what kindness can do to an individual, but also directness and confrontation, not combativeness,
Absolutely.
but confrontation. I grow weary of the combativeness and look forward to confronting. Let's confront these things and deal with it and
Absolutely.
wrestle with them as a nation and as individuals.
That ties
That's
into free
what
speech,
we'll
doesn't it?
accomplish. Pardon?
That ties into free speech and how this country has gone from an outspoken nation to being a limited, censored nation.
Well, we are granting the term free speech to be defined by people inappropriately.
Mm-hmm.
We allow pornography and vileness and disgusting obscenities to be listed as free speech, and yet we have to censor the preaching of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at Dianne Feinstein when she questioned Amy Barrett, who's now nominated for the Supreme Court, when she was being examined for the Seventh Circuit of Appeal. And Dianne Feinstein says, "Your dogma lives strong in you," you know, because of her Catholic faith. And I'm thinking, wow, would she say that to a Muslim?
Mm-hmm. No, no,
I don't think so.
no.
And I don't know that she would say it to a Jew.
Right.
Might. She may, I don't know if she would or not, but she did say it to this woman. And I'm thinking, wow, you my dogma lives strong in me. And I would hope that all of our dogmas live strong in us, that we hold
Absolutely. That's what makes you
convictions.
you.
But I would hope that we can also talk about our dogmas together and learn how to learn from each other and grow in this. I've never learned anything from somebody I agreed with, but I
Mm-hmm.
learned from people I disagree with.
Absolutely.
I don't disagree with I mean I don't have to agree with I don't have to agree with President Trump on everything.
Mhm.
But I do agree that we as a country, this is unsustainable. And one of the things I learned
Absolutely
here of what is unsustainable and what is not. And what we're dealing with right now is unsustainable. It is unsustainable.
unsustainable at its core, and it will unravel at the seam, and it won't take. And we go back to the question, what your vision about 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. And so that ties into one of questions I really wanted to talk about, the the amputee programs in artificial intelligence. So how do you see artificial intelligence helping?
Well, we have to have artificial intelligence because we've lost real intelligence, clearly. When I see Jerry Nadler, I cry out for artificial intelligence because it's so limited. Um, I see us relying on technology um, for certain things appropriately, and I also see an unhealthy grasp to it. If your cell phone cut out today, would you be able to function? And how much is being fed to us versus how much are we actually going out to glean? And glean is an older word, but we have to go out and physically get it for ourselves. I remember going to the library, checking out a book and reading a book. But now people are getting their information from, do they even read books? But they're getting information from social media and Twitter is censoring the president of the United States,
So it's Facebook,
but not censoring Iran.
right?
They're not censoring Black Lives Matter.
Or Hezbollah.
They're not censoring people who are chanting death to America, but they're censoring this. So who gives, and why are this Twitter, why are they the fact checkers? Who are they getting their facts from? And why don't we just have a fact checking network and just turn that on and call it the news? And it's just the facts instead of all this opinion out there. So I think that we are being manipulated very, very easily as a society. And I think
Are you
that we're not,
referring to social engineering?
pardon me?
Are you referring to social engineering?
I'm referring to educational engineering because we have indoctrinated children improperly with the whole thing of globalization, multiculturalism, and climate change, and they view those as weapons to divide a wedge. And that's like, it's like what Black Lives Matter said, we want to get rid of the nuclear family. And it's no different than the education system of this country who said we want to get rid of the autonomous nation. A nuclear family is important to a healthy nation. Look what having the nuclear family disrupted by has done to the Black community. With
Absolutely.
70 illegitimacy rate, when you have 70% of children born in the Black community don't are born into a single parent household. Is that a healthy thing? I'm just asking a question. Is that healthy? Is that something we aspire to? If that's a good thing, then why don't we bump that up to 100%?
Absolutely.
Is 70% of African American children born to a single parent a good thing? And if it's not a good thing, what are you doing to fix it? And if it is a good thing, then let's increase it.
Absolutely.
But I still want the question answered. Is it a good thing? Is it
One of
worthy of is it worthy of our aspiring to as a nation?
So it seems to me, I mean, one of the radio hosts that I listen to periodically is Larry Elder. He speaks on that quite a bit, on how, you know, to the detriment of the Black communities, fathers are absent, you know, and so he feels that this is the
Well, he
problem that
says it's a
is solved.
detriment. But I'm going to ask the left. I'm going to ask Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to ask Jerry Nadler. I'm going to ask Chuck Schumer. I'm going to ask Barack Obama. Is that a good thing? And if it's not a good thing, why is that not a good thing? Why is a two-parent household a good thing? Because that is in direct contradiction with what the Black Lives Matter said they wanted to do. They scrubbed it
Absolutely.
up. They said they wanted to break down the nuclear family. So you're saying this is a good thing? You say this is a bad thing. I want to know an answer. And until we answer that question, I'm not going to particularly move, because I
What
want
I
to know if it's a good thing for 70% of African American children to be born into a single parent home. Is that a good thing? And if it's not,
Absolutely.
what are you doing as a political leader to fix that problem? If
They
it is,
don't have vision. They don't have stewardship. They just have their careers. They're career oriented, and they're not, and you know, they say serving, but they haven't. I mean, I grew up in Maryland, Montgomery County, and I would drive over to down DC, Washington, Anacostia. You know, I have to go back home quickly because that's not a safe zone. This is like steps away from the White House. And then we have also Baltimore, which is what President Trump called out. And they said no, he was just saying because he said it was rat infested, and it's true.
so did John Lewis.
Yeah.
He said it
So
was rat infested. He said it was an infested place 20 years ago.
absolutely, only if
The question
Donald Trump says it,
is
then
that a
it's
good thing?
yeah,
Is that a good thing? And if not, what are you doing about it? And
absolutely,
you're throwing more money at it, because this is not a money problem. This is a stewardship problem.
absolutely, absolutely. And we talk, we go on, and so a
It
hundred years.
always comes
Can you
back to
imagine?
stewardship.
No, I mean, 100 years from now, we hope that we would have evolved past this, this whole concept of this
I
country
kind of doubt it.
for it to
I kind
survive.
of doubt it. And I'll tell you why I kind of doubt it. Because we don't have a systemic racism problem. We have a systemic sin problem. And systemic sin problem, that's the condition of mankind, and it will manifest itself in racism. Certainly, we will always have racism. It will
Hmm.
manifest itself in murder, in sexual harassment, in rape, in burglary, in violence and assault, in
Sexual
demeaning.
sex trafficking.
It is there is a systemic sin problem in the condition of mankind. You cannot mandate and legislate morality. You can only punish immorality if you catch it. But first you have to define what it is. And so for them to come on and say, well, the whole thing is systemic racism, they're not really even looking at the core issue. Why would somebody even be a racist? What is going on in somebody's head that would make you
Hmm.
say that you're better than someone else?
So
Why would
define the sin. What does that sin, the systemic sin that you just referred to?
sin is the nature of humankind before God? Ultimately, we have to answer to God for this. And I make
Absolutely.
no pretense about saying this. And there are a lot of people that uh, there are a lot of people that don't believe in hell. Does that mean that they're right? That's a heck of a gamble to take. And I have seen my own sin and confronted enough of it, not all of it. I've just confronted enough of it that I need a savior. And that savior is not me. I cannot save myself. That is the condition of mankind. That's the whole point of the gospel. This whole point that God sent Christ here, because there's no way we could go to him. And so when you have this systemic character flaw in who you are, as a systemic flaw in your heart, it's going to manifest itself out in so many different ways. And I look back at this thing with you and me here sitting together. Why in the world would either one of us look at each other as less valuable than the other one, just because
So
you're a woman, I'm a man, you're black, I'm white? But when we stand before God, how much of that is going to matter?
But it's interesting, and you talk about this human sin, and I do feel, thank you so much for that clarification. And it's an inner journey, because if you don't realize your own value and you're looking for the external world to validate you, you're going to keep fumbling about and not getting the results you're looking for, because the job is not done on the outside, it's done on the inside. And
It's
that's what God is.
always a matter of the heart. And that's what we have to speak to and deal with. And we deal with people who live with a lot of pain, a lot of loss, a lot of sorrow. If you've grown up in poverty for generations, and you've experienced racism in these inner cities for generations, you're going to have a worldview that is shaped by that, and it is painful. And instead of me telling you to get over it, I'm going to hopefully try to listen to you and hear your heart and hear the pain that you carry with it, and see if we can't somehow build each other up in this. That's the kind of the whole point. That's how you do this. I don't tell my wife to get over the fact that she's missing her legs. I help her get her prosthetic legs, and I give her my hand and I help her stand. And I walk with her until she feels strong enough to walk on her own, and care for her to the best of my abilities. That's how you do it.
Thank you so much. And we all have something going on that we project that into the outside world, and sometimes, unfortunately, we don't deal with us, and we end up re-traumatizing. I feel that's what's happening in Washington and around the world in different sectors. So I want you to talk to me to the last words for your community and those listening now, as to what your legacy is. What does that look like?
Well, I don't know, but let me circle back to that and jump into it from another angle. If you have somebody, go back to these things that are done and the wounds that people carry. If you have a child that was molested by her father sexually for years and years and years, how do you expect that child to grow up to be normal? What is normal at that point? How does that child function in a marriage or any kind of relationship? There's a brokenness level there that is beyond the pale. 100 doctors have treated my wife in 12 hospitals, and she's had 80 plus surgeries from a car wreck. When you've had somebody that has been molested and treated horribly or abused or things like that, that is far worse than the car wreck my wife had. And you can't undo those kinds of things. And so as a compassionate, uh, as act of compassion, you learn that you're going to care for that person to the best of their abilities, and know that they may never, ever be able to recover from that. If you have a kid that is conscripted into one of these murderous gangs over there in Africa that happened, and at 13 years old, he's made to go out there and start murdering people. Even if he goes and finds salvation at a church when he's 25 years old, how do you help him regain some sense of normalcy for being a murderous kid that was forced to do these horrific acts of violence all through his teenage years? And so we have to be able to see people's hearts on this. And so when I talk to somebody who is feeling the oppression of outrage over Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, or any of these people that has gripped our nation like this, my goal for me is not to figure out how do we fix this as a nation, because I don't have that kind of power.
Mm-hmm.
Person that is in front of me that is struggling with that, I can at least ask them, what would help you today? What would help you personally today, right here, right now? I remember somebody calling into my show one time, and they said, we need to, you need to use your celebrity powers to get, the government to start doing this and this and this and this and this. And I stopped him and I said, first off, I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a caregiver.
You're a celebrity in my world.
Well, that's very gracious, but we got to redefine the word celebrity. But I said, the second thing is, suppose we went all Bernie Sanders and we just gave everything away, and AOC, we just gave it all away. Just everybody gets everything for free. First off, you got to elect them. Then they got to pass that, and then it's got to trickle down to you. That could take a year or never, but minimum of a year. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do this afternoon? What are you going to do right now? What are you doing for lunch? And if you start breaking it down to what's the next right thing for me to do, it changes everything. It changes the way you approach it. These people that want to throw a Molotov cocktail or shoot the cops or defund the police, okay, but what are you doing right now this afternoon to improve your life? And some people you can't reason with. They're so filled with hatred and vitriol that you can't reason with them, and you don't need to. You don't need to waste your time. But I think if we could start at least trying to have more conversations, every time somebody calls my show, first question I ask is, how are you feeling? And it takes them a while to answer it because they're not used to answering what's going on with me. I don't want to hear about how the people in Minneapolis are doing right now because I can't do anything about that. But I want to hear how you're doing. You know, I don't have any power over that, but I have power over right here in this conversation right now today. And maybe if we could incorporate a little bit more of that, we might find that we can make a little bit more peace and a little bit more harmony between us as American citizens, as a family. That's how you do it. And,
Absolutely.
and I don't mean to be in a utopia. I just know what is mine and what is not mine. I am not the president. I am not a member of Congress. I'm not an elected person. I'm just somebody who has a microphone and speaks to people who take care of people who are hurting. And I take care of somebody who hurts. And these are things that I've learned. And this is all I have the power to do.
Absolutely.
And I vote with great passion and great intentionality, and I support to the best I can the policies that I think that are going to help advance this country, but knowing that the real work begins with my neighbor.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that we're living in this day where people are encouraged to tell on each other. If there's this woman who I saw a post that she goes around and looks for businesses that are supposed to be closed, and she goes around and reports them to the police, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was just a quick glance. So I don't have the
Yeah, I
details.
saw that. You're always going to have what I call the Frank Burns types from MASH, the television show MASH, and Frank Burns, the people that love to tell other people how to live their lives. You're always going to have that. And we need to fight against that. We have a responsibility to fight against it. But in the meantime,
Absolutely.
we don't need to become so militant and so polarized that we can't sidestep. Nothing that we're dealing with has not been covered in Scripture. And if you'll notice that Jesus didn't get himself embroiled in some of these things, he sidestepped these things and went directly to the heart matter. And I think that there's a precedent for that for us, and many times in Scripture, when you live in oppressive regimes and all those kinds of things. And we have a responsibility to be good stewards of this nation. We were given this last bastion of freedom here in the world. And if America goes down, the whole world is toast. We know this. We have a responsibility to be good stewards of this. But while we're doing that, let's also be good stewards of our neighbor.
Absolutely. What a fantastic thought in it. And so your neighbor, and for caregivers, I want you to give them some suggestions as how to, again, continue to travel this journey. And then you can talk a little bit about your legacy as we
Well,
come to the close of
my
the show.
fellow caregivers, all of that is tapped into one thing. My legacy and everything else is this: healthy caregivers make better caregivers. Healthy
Beautiful.
caregivers make better caregivers. Don't try to be happy. Strive for healthiness. Happiness will come and go, but healthiness is an intentionality. We intentionally, nobody ever accidentally started to get in shape. Nobody accidentally goes to see the doctor. Nobody accidentally chooses to put down a Snickers bar and eat a healthy piece of fruit. Those are all acts of intention. Nobody accidentally does things that are healthy. Those are intentional decisions that we make. I'm going to do something that's healthy. I'm going to not spend money on that and save my money for this. I'm going to hold my tongue and not necessarily spout off until I've actually had a time to cool off and not say things that I'm going to regret or somebody else is going to regret. We can make acts of intentional healthiness. And the healthier we become emotionally, physically, in our lifestyle, professionally, our money, our endurance, the better off we're equipped to care for someone who needs us to be healthy. My wife needs me to be healthy. She doesn't need me to be a bitter, angst-filled guy. She needs me to be healthy and clear of thought. She doesn't always get that. I'm still a human being, but that's my goal. That's my path. That's the path to safety. And today's a great day to start being healthy. I don't care what you did last week. You may have eaten a whole box of Krispy Kreme donuts, but you don't have to do it today. You can eat something healthy today. You can call your doctor and get a physical today. You can, work on getting rid of cigarettes. You can put down that beer. You can turn off that show. You can stop that relationship. Those are things that are dragging you down and taking you into very dark places. And we can start that process today, right now, and making our lives a calmer, healthier, and even more joyful place to live in. And you don't have to have everything perfect for you to live with a sense of calmness and joy. You don't. You really don't. That's a state of mind. Misery is a choice, and so is joy and happiness.
Absolutely. I made a choice. Absolutely. There are many times on this journey where I could have given up. My sister, my brother, both of them passed on, but I said, nope, I had purpose. So I want to thank you, Peter Rosenberger, for coming on and discussing frankly with me today. And he is the author of Hope for the Caregiver. And we've had some intense conversations around many topics, but of course, I always ask my guests to share a fun fact so that we can leave in a state of joy. What do you have to share with?
A fun fact. I love stand-up comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I love comedians. I appreciate the work they do, and I'm a frustrated stand-up comedian myself. And if I could do it all
we
over,
have to do another episode to hear you, to give you 15 minutes to see your what do you call it?
If I could do it all over again, I would start a deli called Rosenberger's Deli, and I would have salted cured meats hanging from the ceiling and have a little stage over here for comedians to come in and do their act while I serve sandwiches and soups.
Not too late. Not too late.
I live a long ways from people right now. I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
In the days of COVID too, I don't know what restrictions there are. I'm so grateful to you to have come on today, and I hope you can come back, and I'm sure we have so much more to talk about. And
Sendra,
the audience, I hope you enjoyed. And so, how are you feeling? Because I realized I didn't ask you, how are you feeling today? It's not too late.
I am feeling fine, thank you. I've got a little problem with an arthritic left knee that is causing me some frustration. That's why I kind of move around. I stretch my knee out, and part of that is just getting old, I think. And but I am feeling fine, and I thank you very much for asking. And Sendra, I appreciate the work you're doing, and I appreciate that you let me come on my show and just share my thoughts in my heart. I hope it's been helpful to you and to your listeners. And we'll see. I hope I did okay.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for joining a wonderful episode, another wonderful episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. My name is Sendra Dorcé. As always, I wish you a beautiful day. Peter, have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D on Sendor TV. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, and we definitely appreciate you being part of this community.